My son sold my home without warning. What I discovered next will leave you amazed and inspired. The morning sun beamed into Linda's cozy kitchen, illuminating the chaos of her breakfast preparations. With the scent of pumpkin spice wafting through the air, she couldn't shake the growing anxiety that gnawed at her chest like an uninvited guest. Today should have been just another peaceful autumn morning in her quaint Midwestern town, yet something felt wrong, off-kilter. As she turned to reach for her mug, her phone buzzed insistently on the counter, its screen flashing a message from Jake, her only son. Her blood ran cold, a pit forming in her stomach. He had sold their family home. The images raced through her mind: Thanksgiving dinners with laughter echoing off the walls, Jake's adorable birthday parties where she pinned up drawings of superheroes. This house was not just walls and a roof, it was their cherished sanctuary, each room preserved with memories she meticulously held onto. Betrayed and heartbroken, she couldn't wrap her head around it. How could he do this? The very foundation of their life together had been erased without a whisper of warning. The betrayal pierced through her, leaving her feeling adrift and alone. How could he prioritize a tech startup over their home? Frustration churned inside her, and she felt the weight of her sacrifices stifling her spirit. What was she to do now, a retired school teacher with little more than her memories? Alongside that sharp hurt, insecurities burst forth. Was she not enough? Had he always planned to escape? The doubts were suffocating. Before she could spiral deeper into despair, she found herself on a journey of discovery. A simple search led her to find Jake had been burdened by student debt, suffocated by dreams he felt compelled to chase. Her fury began to dull, replaced by an unsettling understanding of his desperation. Still, the sense of betrayal lingered, threatening to shatter their bond entirely. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Linda was spiraling through endless thoughts of confusion and resentment, a flicker of inspiration ignited within her. She stumbled across local artisans struggling to thrive, and she realized they needed her newfound skills. A project began to take shape: an online platform to showcase their talents and empower their voices. With each step, her spirit rekindled as she poured herself into uplifting others in her community. Yet, as she found herself growing more energized, the chasm between her and Jake widened. Her journey was so different from his. Days turned into weeks, and the connection with Mrs. Thompson, her elderly neighbor, deepened. Mrs. Thompson became an unexpected mentor, guiding her through uncharted waters of forgiveness, as they navigated shared losses and ambitions. But every new day brought fresh challenges, and just when Linda thought she could forgive, fragments of old wounds with Jake resurfaced, leaving her in turmoil. When Jake finally returned home, he stood before her with the thrill of ambition in his eyes, a subtle guilt layered beneath it. She was torn, her love for him battling with feelings of resentment. Would they be able to bridge the gap in understanding, or would they each remain prisoners of their own ambitions and hurt? The doorbell abruptly rang, shattering the moment, as a package arrived: an old box of letters and keepsakes from her past. In that moment, their worlds collided, and silence enveloped them both, thick with anticipation and unresolved emotions. Would this bring them together or tear them apart? As the box sat between them, a tangible reminder of the passage of time, Linda felt an intense pull to dive into its depths. Curiosity mingled with hesitation, each letter a potential key to both understanding her past and reshaping her present. The silence weighed heavily, echoing the unresolved tension hanging in the air. Jake shifted uncomfortably. She could see him grappling with his own guilt and desire for connection. Both of them were caught between yesterday's memories and tomorrow's conflicts, but the question loomed: could they bridge that vast divide? With a resolute breath, Linda grasped the box. With each letter she unfolded, nostalgia washed over her in waves: the handwriting of long-lost friends, snippets of laughter, and declarations of youthful dreams. It was a past she cherished but had buried under years of routine and sacrifice. Among these letters, she discovered something unexpected, a forgotten sketch of a small bakery, a dream she had once nurtured before life's practicalities took over. The image illuminated a spark inside her, a reminder of her own unfulfilled ambitions. "Mom, are you okay?" Jake's voice broke through her reverie, and the worry etched on his face drew her attention. They were no longer just mother and son, they were two individuals wrestling with their aspirations and regrets in that moment. "I'm fine, just lost in memories," she replied, her voice softer. "These remind me of a time when I dared to dream bigger." Jake's expression shifted from concern to intrigue, and he leaned closer. "What dream?" There was an eagerness in his tone she hadn't heard recently. "A bakery," she confessed, the word escaping her lips with a mix of embarrassment and yearning. "I drew plans, had recipes in mind. I wanted to create a space for people to gather, not just for the food but for the warmth of community." For the first time since their conflict, they were sharing not just feelings, but visions of their futures. Jake's brow furrowed as he considered her words. "Maybe we could work together. You know, with your bakery idea and my tech skills." The thought hit her like lightning. Could their paths converge? Each held a fragment of the other's potential, together possibly stronger than apart. Yet doubts crept back in. Was it too optimistic to think they could collaborate after all they'd faced? But before she could respond, another letter slipped free from the box, landing at her feet. As she bent down to retrieve it, she noticed a familiar name: Maggie Wright, a childhood friend who had moved away but shared their dreams and aspirations. Instantly, memories flooded back of Maggie's infectious spirit and their plans to change the world together. Linda hesitated. Had she lost touch not only with Maggie but with herself? Her heart raced as she realized the letters held more than just echoes of her past. They contained both light and shadow, moments of joy and hidden grief. As they explored the rest of the box together, ideas began to flow between them. Linda shared snippets of her old sketches, while Jake excitedly introduced digital avenues and social media strategies that could help her vision flourish. With renewed energy, Linda's heart swelled with possibilities. Maybe the path ahead wasn't just about forgiveness but about creating something new, something that could bind them. Yet as they began to dream aloud, she felt a familiar trepidation rise. Could she really embrace a future intertwined with her son's ambitions after such betrayal? And if they embarked on this venture together, what if past grievances sank their aspirations? As this newfound partnership blossomed, the doorbell rang yet again, interrupting their flow. A package from Maggie's home address lay waiting outside, almost as if the universe was urging them to confront the past. The vague sentiments of fear and hope swirled within her. What revelations awaited them in that package? As Linda stared at the package, her heart raced with a potent mix of apprehension and curiosity. Every evocative memory tied to Maggie felt like a tether pulling her back to a time when she believed fiercely in her dreams. The letters had reawakened emotions long stifled, but now, with Maggie's name on the box, the pull was almost magnetic. "What is it?" Jake asked, his voice edged with both concern and impatience. She inhaled deeply, steeling herself against the cocktail of feelings surging within. With a shaking hand, she reached for the package and tore it open. Inside, she found a collection of personal items, photo albums, a lone sketch of a bakery sketched in vibrant pastels, one that looked remarkably similar to her own, and a handwritten note, carefully folded and slightly yellowed. "Mom?" Jake leaned closer, peering over her shoulder as she unfolded the note. "Dear Linda," it began, "I hope this letter finds you well. I often think about our dreams. I believe in yours even more now than I did back then. Life may have taken us different paths, but never doubt the impact of our creativity." Linda's heart tightened as she continued reading. Maggie spoke of her own struggles, of losing her way in the hustle of daily life. Yet there was a clear call to action woven through her words, an invitation to not only remember but to reclaim what they had once aspired to be. "Maggie," Linda murmured, feeling the sting of tears threaten to spill. She had taken for granted the relationships that had once shaped her aspirations. How had her dreams felt so distant? The bakery imploded under the weight of parental responsibilities, existing only as sketches hidden in the confines of that dusty box. Mom, she sounds like she's going through a lot too. Maybe you should reach out to her? Jake interjected, his earlier enthusiasm morphing into focused determination. You don't know what I've lost touch with, Jake. Linda's voice trembled. Could she unearth the past and transform it into something viable? A different path was opening up before her, and it called for risks that made her stomach churn. As they dove back into the contents of the package, their discussion shifted toward concrete plans, the kind of plans that might give life to her latent dreams. Images of the small bakery danced in Linda's mind once more, unearthing buried recipes and flair for creativity that had all but been obliterated by the mundane obligations of adulthood. Listen, Jake said, an air of seriousness wrapping his words like a warm blanket, we could reach out to Maggie together. You can't do this alone. Alone? The idea sank in slowly, each repetition heavy with meaning. She had spent so long relying solely on herself, nurturing old wounds that now demanded attention, yet here was Jake, offering his support in a way that felt transformative. Together, she whispered, testing the word, savoring its taste. Together, they could bridge generations of dreams and rejuvenate the hope they had both stifled. But even as Linda felt the palpable spark of possibility, dread clouded her excitement. Was she ready to confront the disappointment looming over past decisions? Would she risk vulnerability in trying to reconnect not just with Maggie but with the dreams she lost? Imagining the bakery, and the joy it could bring, ignited a flicker of hope. Yet alongside it, fear of failure gnawed at her resolve. What if revisiting these dreams led to nothing? Before she could voice those worries, Jake was already pulling out his phone, a fire of determination lighting his eyes. Let us do this, Mom. You, me, and Maggie, let's make it happen. The notion sent a thrill up her spine and a wave of doubt crashing simultaneously. As Jake sent a message while she watched, Linda's internal conflict churned within her like a storm, leaving her with a pressing question. Was she truly ready to confront her past, redefine her identity, and accept the vulnerability that came with chasing forgotten dreams? The looming possibility of Maggie's response could change everything, but would it be the motivation Linda needed, or yet another reminder of lost potentials? Linda watched her son's thumbs dance over the screen, her heart sinking erratically with the tapping rhythm. That click-clack of his fingers felt like it was both igniting hope and drowning her in anxiety. Each message sent was a step forward, yet for Linda, it felt more like a leap into the unknown, a space where trepidation mingled with a flickering flame of anticipation. Done, Jake announced, setting the phone down as he turned to her. His eyes glimmered with optimism, a stark contrast to the anxious storm brewing inside Linda's heart. As silence enveloped them, Linda's mind raced. She could hardly articulate the weight of everything she carried. Each neglected dream sat like a stone in her chest. Would this reconnection with Maggie spark a fire in her own ambition, or was it simply a recipe for disappointment? A myriad of potential outcomes flashed through her thoughts, each one more daunting than the last. What if Maggie's response was tepid? What if she had long since moved on from their once bright dreams? The fear of opening old wounds overwhelmed her. Yet, as she looked to Jake, she recognized the earnest determination etched on his face. He was willing to believe in her when she found it so hard to do the same. What will you do if she responds? Jake asked, breaking her spiral into doubt. The question seized her, forcing Linda to confront her reality. She pondered the locked doors of her aspirations, each leading to dreams of pastries rising like the sun, cakes adorned with delicate icing, and the intoxicating scent of bread baking in a warm oven. But the image was quickly accompanied by the rumble of uncertainty, reminding her of the years wasted in a labyrinth of mundane responsibilities, losing sight of herself along the way. I don't know, she admitted, the tremor in her voice betraying her uncertainty. What if I can't face her? What if my dreams are nothing more than a shadow of what they could have been? Mom, Jake leaned in closer, his tone earnest. Maggie sent all this stuff for a reason. Maybe she needs this as much as you do. It's about taking that first step, whatever it looks like. The concept of taking steps felt monumental under the shadows of fear. Yet in that moment, there was a glimmer, a growing understanding that this could be a reclamation, Not just of their shared dreams but of her very identity that had stagnated under years of self-imposed limitations. She inhaled deeply, piecing together a plan in her mind. If Maggie was willing to reach out, perhaps it signaled a chance for reinvention. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to navigate beyond failures she had clung to for too long. Although the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, it was the vulnerability of that potential journey that beckoned her. What if we got together and set some goals? Linda suggested, suddenly feeling the weight lift just a little. Like reconnecting with Maggie, starting with something small. Maybe a weekend baking session, nothing too huge, just something to get back into the groove of it. Jake's expression brightened. I love that idea. And who knows? We might discover something amazing together. She was still plagued by doubts, but that spark of collaboration with Jake ignited something within her, a determination to take action beyond the confines of her routine. Inspired by the thought of creating something beautiful out of both shared nostalgia and new experiences set her heart racing. Before she could luxuriate in the moment, the notification pinged from Jake's phone, snapping her out of her reverie. A response. Linda's stomach knotted, her fingers tingling with anticipation. Open it. Jake urged, eyes wide with excitement. The weight of the moment crushed the air around her as she reached out to grasp the phone. But just as she was about to press the notification, doubt surged again. Was this a fresh start, or merely a reminder of everything she had struggled to become? Heart hammering, she hesitated. Was she prepared to face whatever Maggie's response held, or would old fears prevent her from seizing the opportunity for growth? The moment teetered on the edge of revelation, caught in the uncertainty of change, mirroring the delicate balance between aspiration and fear. Would this new chapter wait patiently for her to take the plunge, or would it slip away into mere hopeful fantasy? Linda's hand trembled as she hovered over the phone. The screen dimmed momentarily, reflecting her panic before lighting up again with the vibrant notification. Jake's urgent whispers filled the air. Mom, just read it. The urge to remain paralyzed in her uncertainty battled fiercely against the call of possibility. This was more than a message, it was a key to a chapter she had closed long ago. With one deep breath, she tapped the screen, her heart thundering as she summoned the courage to engage with the past. The message from Maggie was brief but illuminating, her words carrying warmth wrapped in nostalgia. She reminisced about their early baking days together, recalling their shared dreams of opening a bakery. Linda could feel Maggie's excitement crackling through the screen like an electrifying current. Hey Linda. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. It would be amazing to bake together again. How about we set a date? Miss those sweet days. The flicker of hope ignited within her, pushing the shadows of doubt aside. The thoughts of long-lost ambitions swirled in her head like flour in a mixing bowl. Reconnecting with Maggie wasn't just an invitation, it was an opportunity for self-discovery, a chance to redefine herself outside the parameters of motherhood and the mundane. What did she say? Jake, almost vibrating with enthusiasm, leaned in. She wants to bake. She wants to reconnect. It's incredible, Linda breathed, the words tumbling out, her voice rising with every syllable. Jake's smile widened. That's amazing, Mom. You have to do it. However, the intoxicating thrill began to mix with the familiar bitterness of fear. What if it wasn't as simple as baking cookies? What if the memories of their shared dreams weighed heavier than ever? Linda could feel a cyclone of emotions brewing. She took a moment to reflect amidst the tumult. Do I really want to step back into that world? She questioned silently, examining her own resistance. The fear of failure clung to her like dough to a countertop. What if the magic no longer existed, and the dream was merely an illusion? Yet as she fortified herself with the encouragement from Jake and the vivid memories of the joy baking had once brought her, a subtle realization settled within her. The desire to reclaim her passions was potent, eclipsing her fears. Okay, maybe we should actually plan something, she suggested, her voice more assured. But let us do it right. I want to go beyond just baking, I want to create something meaningful. This isn't merely about the pastries but about rediscovering who I am. Jake nodded, a flush of pride breaking across his face like sunlight piercing through a cloudy sky. I can help. We can make a list of recipes or even craft ideas you've always wanted to try. Seeing the spark in his eyes ignited her own, she felt her ambitions reforming, reshaping into something tangible that she could grasp and mold. It was time to step back into the kitchen, not just to recreate memories, but to invigorate them with new life. As they sat together crafting their plans, moments flicked by like pages in a book. They discussed flavors, textures, and their visions for a new beginning. Just then, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was Maggie suggesting a weekend, a date fixed in reality. What do you think, Mom? Ready to dive in? Jake asked, his eyes searching hers. Linda locked eyes with her son, feeling the urgency of the moment rush over her. This wasn't just about baking, this was about stepping into her dreams, facing the dread of failure head-on and perhaps, just perhaps, unearthing a piece of herself she thought she had lost. Let us do it, she said finally, the weight of her fears lifting ever closer to exhilaration. As they finalized their plans, her mind shifted to the fluctuating reality of her choices. She could almost hear the sounds of baking wafting through the air, laughter, flour on her nose, the warmth of camaraderie rekindling. But as the sun dipped low, a lingering question surfaced like a swarm of sugar on her palate. What if she wasn't the only one with secrets and regrets to uncover? The moment of truth loomed nearer, and with it, the necessity for self-examination and understanding of her past. Would inspiring change require facing the demons nestled in her memories alongside Maggie? The door to personal exploration had swung open, and what new revelations awaited just inside? Linda awoke the next morning with a sense of determination tinged with a touch of anxiety. The prospect of reconnecting with Maggie was enticing, yet the reality of what lay ahead loomed large. She had spent years in the drought of her baking dreams, watering her son's experiences instead of her own passions. Today would mark the first stride in reclaiming that integral piece of her identity. After breakfast, she found herself in her small kitchen, which had become less a sanctuary and more of a storage room for distant memories. Dust motes floated in the sunbeams spilling through the window, illuminating jars of unspent ingredients, flour, sugar, and vanilla waiting patiently to be transformed. As she took inventory of her supplies, each item evoked nostalgia, a reminder of the childhood joy found in mixing, kneading, and experimenting. Holding a whisk in her hands, she felt the weight of her aspirations settle comfortably. She moved to the countertop, where the remnants of her dreams waited, like an untouched canvas. This time, I will create something, she whispered to herself, letting conviction infuse her voice. I want to let those dreams gather dust again. Linda grabbed her notebook, the one she had set aside years ago, filled with half-finished recipes and scribbled notes. Today, she would breathe life into her reflections. The blank pages beckoned her to explore not just the flavors she adored but the deeper meanings her culinary experiences held. The acceptance, the love, the unity baking had once been a bridge connecting her to something greater. Throughout the morning, she launched into an exploration of her lost recipes. With each written word, the whispers of her ambitions gained clarity. Chocolate chip cookies danced across the page, a recipe for raspberry tart lingered, but it was the recipe for a lemon meringue pie that struck her with its vibrant potential for revival. She recalled the days spent crafting that delicate crust, the exhilaration of whipping egg whites into a creamy froth. That was more than a dessert, it was a symbol of the relationships she had built both with Maggie and herself. As she sorted through her thoughts, a shadow of doubt crept in. What if her culinary journey wasn't just about her own rekindled passion? Could her reunion with Maggie lead to unresolved tensions, hidden grievances? Was she truly prepared to confront the essence of their shared dreams, which had been abandoned yet lingered tantalizingly on the cusp of existence? The vulnerability of facing those emotions pressed down on her. Yet, amid those swirling uncertainties, a sense of purpose crystallized. Sure, rekindling her passion meant exploring the complex layers of their history, both sweet and bitter. It also meant inviting Maggie into a space of growth, forcing both of them to acknowledge how life had shifted the landscapes of their hopes. Maybe confronting the past is exactly what we need, she said aloud, gripping the notebook tighter. The idea was daunting, yet Linda felt a glimmer of excitement leading the way through her fears. Time moved swiftly as she engaged in preparation, setting up a meeting that had begun to take shape. She enlisted Jake's help to brainstorm the event outwardly, with visions of a small pop-up bakery in mind, just for a day, a chance to showcase not only their culinary prowess but the renewed connection between friends. As she moved to finalize the date and themes with Maggie, anticipation pulsed in her veins. This endeavor had turned into something even deeper. It was about creating a bond through the alchemy of their culinary skills, tempered by the fire of their shared experiences. Before she knew it, Maggie answered her message, excitement and nostalgia radiating through their digital correspondence. But as Linda read deeper, she couldn't shake the rising apprehension. Was she ready for the confrontation with the truths woven into their lives? The last question lingered long after she replied. Could their reunion spark a revolution within herself, leading her down a path where both triumphs and failures shaped her future? Just then, her phone buzzed again. Maggie had a surprise. Linda hesitated, the weight of that uncertainty settled once more on her shoulders. The next step might hold more than just cakes and confections. It could unravel threads of their past, catalyzing a reckoning neither had anticipated. Linda's heart raced as she read Maggie's surprise message. The words floated before her like wisps of spun sugar, sweet yet delicate, holding the potential for both delight and disaster. What could she possibly have in store? The anticipation blended with the apprehension swirling within her, causing a whirlwind of excitement and fear. With a trembling finger, she tapped on the notification, revealing an invitation to meet at the old bakery on Maple Street. It was a place strewn with memories of pie seasons past, flour-dusted countertops, the aroma of fresh bread wafting through the air, and laughter that echoed like a song of celebration. But more than nostalgia, it embodied the excitement of what was yet to come, a fresh start. Yet the very thought of returning to that sacred space ignited her insecurities. Why there? She murmured, clutching her notebook tighter as if it were a talisman against the self-doubt threatening to consume her. Did Maggie remember? Did she understand the weight that bakery carried? Taking a deep breath, Linda wrestled with her thoughts. She suddenly felt like a child before a steep cliff, preparing for a leap into the unknown. This was more than a mere reunion, it was a confrontation with everything they'd set aside. What would she say? Would they discover harmony, or expose cracks that would widen through unspoken grievances? Yet deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. This could be the fulcrum for both of them, the moment their shared memories could pivot, bridging the gap of silence that had lingered between them. With clarity, Linda set about making preparations for her return to the bakery. She envisioned every detail: the way she would stage her table with whimsical pastel linens, the scent of fresh lemons from her meringue pie mingling with the nostalgia in the air. It was time to prove that she had not only preserved recipes but also her love for baking, a thread woven into her identity that had only become frayed during their time apart. As she whisked, mixed, and kneaded, her confidence began to swell. Each ingredient was a reminder of who she used to be and who she wanted to be again. She envisioned the taste of her creations, relishing in the fantasies of how Maggie's eyes would light up at the first bite of her familiar lemon meringue pie. But beneath the anticipation, another wave of doubt crashed over her. What if the moment was not everything she hoped? What if Maggie, too, had grown in ways that no longer aligned with her aspirations? Questions tumbled through her mind like errant flour across the counter. Was she prepared to face the reality of their evolution, or would both women leave their meeting further apart than before? Finally, the day arrived. With her baked goods neatly packaged, the soft sunlight streaming through her kitchen window filled her with a sense of clarity. She had a mission beyond rekindling a friendship. She wanted to stake her claim as a baker, an artist, and a friend. As she walked to the bakery, her heart thudded loudly against her chest, the familiar echoes of laughter and comfort now shadowed by her nerves. This was not just a gathering, it was a reckoning, a leap into the transformative unknown. Upon entering the old bakery, her breath caught in her throat. The interior was just as she remembered. But would it feel the same? Then Linda saw Maggie. Her friend stood there, a mixture of excitement and nostalgia in her eyes that mirrored Linda's own feelings. This was it, the moment where recognition and resolution hung in the air like the scent of freshly baked bread. But would their past weigh them down or lift them up? As Linda approached Maggie, anticipation gave way to uncertainty. Would they navigate the landscape of their shared history skillfully, or would it trigger deeper wounds? With every step, she felt they were teetering on the edge of clarity or conflict. She took a breath, preparing for whatever was to come because either way, it was an essential part of her evolution. Just then, as Maggie turned towards her, a flicker of something unspoken sparked in the space between them. The moment of truth was at hand, but the outcome remained perilously unclear. The air thickened with tension as Maggie met Linda's gaze, a mixture of hesitation and warmth washing over them like a wave. The bakery, once alive with shared laughter and joyful chatter, now felt heavy with ghosts of their past misunderstandings. Linda's heart pounded as the weight of unspoken words hung between them, and she wondered if this moment could either mend or deepen the divide. Maggie's lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but the words faltered. Linda saw a flicker of uncertainty mirrored in her friend's eyes that struck her deeply. Was Maggie as apprehensive as she was? Linda, Maggie finally breathed, breaking the stillness. I wasn't sure if you'd come. The statement opened a door laden with shared histories and heavy regrets. Linda's thoughts raced. I wouldn't miss this, it felt important, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She placed her carefully crafted pie on the table between them, the presentation reflecting her effort and vulnerability. Lemon meringue, it looks amazing, Maggie murmured, and for a fleeting moment, their connection sparked anew. The bakery had been a bridge at one time, and though the structure had cracked, perhaps its foundation was still there. I remembered how much you loved it, Linda said, the warmth spreading in her chest as nostalgia seeped through the cracks of anxiety. I hope you still do. Of course. I missed this place, missed us, Maggie replied, her emphasis on us sending a jolt of realization through Linda. Maggie's admission tossed their histories into the open. It was no longer about just her, but about both of them and what connection remained. Yet the air was thick with unresolved tensions, and Linda sensed she had the opportunity, the obligation to address the shadows. So what made you want to meet here, at the bakery? She took a calculated risk, probing into uncharted territory. Maggie's expression shifted, uncertainty dancing at the edges. I missed our time here, too. But it felt like the right place to reconnect even if it's been complicated. Linda felt her heart race again. Simultaneously, she felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Complicated seems to be an understatement, she confessed, willing herself to maintain eye contact. We spent so long apart, avoiding what needed to be said. Did you ever think about talking it out? Maggie shifted, the corners of her mouth tightening. I did, I've just been unsure how to start. It feels like we've both changed so much. Her words hung between them, a truth that echoed Linda's inner fears. She too had transformed, but in the silence, realization crashed over her like a tide. What if they focused not on their differences, but on the threads woven through their bond? Maybe that's why we're here, Linda mused, her voice quaking but determined. To see how we can create something new, even with the changes. There it was, the seed of an idea. If she could transform her fear into vulnerability, perhaps the same could happen for Maggie. They could find a way to reknit their relationship, like the flour and butter folding together in a perfect pie crust. Can we start from here? Maggie's voice softened, a plea laden with hope. The moment felt precarious, as if both women stood on the precipice of something profound. Linda took a shaky breath, feeling the bonds of friendship tugging at her spirit. The desire for reconciliation battled with the reluctance to confront the pain of their past, and a decision coalesced in her mind. Let's try, she said, the words a promise laced with trepidation and hope. Together. But as they exchanged tentative smiles, Linda couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the first step, a delicate balancing act of emotions that could either pave the way for healing or serve as the catalyst for deeper confrontation. Just as they began to break the barriers that had silenced them for so long, Maggie's phone buzzed ominously on the table, disrupting the fragile moment. Both women turned their heads, curiosity piquing, but what they discovered next would change everything. The weight of apprehension returned, more pressing than before. What news beckoned so insistently? and would it unearth buried tensions once again? Linda's moment of curiosity quickly turned to dread as Maggie's fingers trembled while reaching for her phone. The decision to reconnect had filled her with faint hope, but the buzzing interruption felt like a harbinger of complications. She held her breath, watching Maggie's face as she read the screen. Maggie's brows knitted together, confusion overtaking the earlier warmth of their interaction. "It's my son," she said softly, a hint of fear in her voice. "He just texted me about the house." The mention of the house struck a chord in Linda. Maggie's family home held both fond memories and unspoken tensions for them. It was where they had shared countless afternoons, and its impending sale had been a bitter source of friction between Maggie and her son. "What is going on?" she pressed, her voice steadier than the uncertainty roiling in her stomach. Maggie scanned the message again, her face paling. "He sold it. Without telling me." Her voice cracked, the revelation shattering the fragile atmosphere of their reunion. Linda felt the air grow heavier, thick with Maggie's turmoil. It was a brutal reminder of the changing tides in their lives, the decisions made without consultation. "That's shocking," Linda said slowly, her mind racing. "Have you talked to him about it?" "No," Maggie replied, her eyes downcast. "I've been avoiding addressing it for weeks, thinking he'd come to me. We haven't been right since the argument." The word right echoed painfully in Linda's ears, underscoring the unresolved issues not just between their children but between them. Linda felt a swift surge of empathy. It was time for her own resolve to deepen. Their tentative bond had given her the courage to confront her own burdens. Maybe this is a good moment to reach out. If you don't talk, it will only fester. You have a chance to set the record straight. Maggie's gaze seemed to brighten momentarily, yet confusion still clouded her features. "But what do I say? I don't even know what I feel." "We can sort through it together," Linda offered, surprising even herself with the strength of her commitment. Sometimes, processing emotional chaos with someone who understands can transform things. "Let us figure this out." Maggie bit her lip, torn between fear and a whisper of hope. The bakery around them had become a strange sanctuary, and for the first time, Linda could sense the layers of their past separating like a warm slice of pie. "I'll call him." Maggie drew a deep breath, her fingers grazing the screen as she prepared to dial. "But what if he pushes me away again?" "Then you'll know where you stand," Linda urged gently. "But avoiding it will only make it harder." As Maggie pressed the call button, Linda knew this could become a turning point for both of them. The prospect of confrontation infused the air with urgency, not just about the call, but about their reconnection as well. Linda had spent too long evading her own difficult truths. Perhaps this was the catalyst she needed to embrace her past failures and lay the groundwork for a more resilient future. The phone rang once, twice, before Maggie's son answered. Linda held her breath, acutely aware of the intricacies of mother-son dynamics, each second ticking louder than the last. In this moment of vulnerability, the bakery felt alive once more, tinged with the bittersweet reminder of forging paths to healing. "Maggie, is that you?" came the unfamiliar voice, and just as uncertainty tightened in Maggie's chest, Linda's thoughts spiraled into recognition. This wasn't just about managing relationships, this was about breaking the cycle of avoidance altogether. As the conversation unfolded with Maggie nervously responding, Linda felt a rush of determination well up inside her. If Maggie could reach out to her son, perhaps Linda could also make her own brave call, one that could redefine not only her relationship with Maggie but with herself. But as she contemplated which call to make, a deeper fear rose within her. What if patching things up with Maggie meant confronting her most painful choices? The air was charged with anticipation, and the call continued, but Linda felt an unsettling question gnawing at the edges of her thoughts. Who or what would she need to confront in her journey to reclaim her own voice? The call with Maggie's son unfolded in a whirlwind of emotions. Maggie listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern, while Linda stood quietly nearby, a supportive presence just out of the frame. Each word that passed between mother and son prompted Linda to reflect deeply on her own past decisions, the choices that had led to her estrangement from her dreams, and the time spent in silence with her emotions. Maggie's voice trembled as she spoke, revealing her feelings of betrayal over the sale of the house. "This is our home. It's where I raised you, where I hoped we could always gather. Why wouldn't you discuss it with me?" The silence grew thick with unspoken fears and shared history, echoing the very struggles that Linda had faced with Jake. The room felt alive with the potential for change. Linda sensed the importance of this moment not merely for Maggie, but for herself as well. As Maggie translated hurt into words, Linda was reminded that healing often begins with recognition, expressed vulnerability, and courage in the face of unresolved pains. Suddenly, a flame of clarity ignited within her. Linda stepped forward, the boundaries of their journeys were merging. She felt compelled to confront her own unspoken thoughts. "Maggie," she said gently as the call with her son continued, "can I speak to you for a moment?" Maggie nodded, their eyes locking in a fleeting moment of shared understanding, even as she continued listening to her son. Linda took a breath, summoning the resolve born from self-discovery during their time apart. It was time to confront fear, not just for Maggie but for herself. "Jake sold our family home too," she confessed, the admission flowing freely. "I know how hard it is to feel the ground shift beneath you without warning." Maggie's surprise was palpable, and with each word Linda shared, she felt empowered, shedding the weight of unanswered questions. When Maggie finally hung up the phone, the atmosphere shifted. Her shoulders raised a little higher, and she met Linda's gaze with renewed steely determination. "I didn't think I would ever stand here again, unraveling old pains," and yet she trailed off, her voice warmer than before. "And yet," Linda echoed, "we're rediscovering what this means for us. It's not just about confronting our past, it's about carving our future." They stood on the precipice of healing, both recognizing that their unresolved tensions had kept them trapped in cycles of avoidance. Linda's heart ached with recognition. It was time to make the call she had been avoiding for too long. Inspired by Maggie's courage, she grabbed her phone. "I have to reach out to Jake. I need to let go of my fears and reconnect with him." Maggie nodded, sharing Linda's resolve. As Linda pressed the contact for her son, her heart raced. This wasn't going to be easy, but acknowledging the possibility of change propelled her forward. The phone rang, and she felt every second stretch like a tightrope in the air. When Jake finally answered, his voice was a familiar balm. "Hey, Mom." "Jake," she began, her voice steadying with purpose. "I want to talk about everything: the house, our dreams, and how we can start fresh." Jake paused, and she could hear his breath hitch. "I didn't mean to hurt you by selling it, Mom. I just felt lost." As they began to communicate their feelings, Linda felt a profound shift take place. This was a space of vulnerability. They were not merely mother and son, they were two individuals navigating the complexities of their transformations. By speaking their truths, they were weaving threads of connection back into their fabric, threads of understanding, love, and ambition. Maggie, meanwhile, took a moment to reflect on her own choices. She could feel the weight of what her son had said echoing through their conversation, acknowledging their own wasted time in silence. With renewed strength, she suggested to Linda, "We should create something together, not just baked goods, but a space to express this healing." Linda smiled, feeling buoyed by her friend's renewed spirit. "Yes, a collaborative space. A platform where we can reconnect not just with our dreams but with each other." It was a vision reignited from the ashes of their erstwhile pursuits, an acceptance of their ebb and flow of life, a testament to resilience. The clarity washed over her like warm butter melting into dough. Gratitude flooded her heart as she realized she was not just reclaiming her future, her dreams, but also fostering a bond with her son and a friendship rekindled in the warmth of understanding. At that moment, standing in the embrace of shared vulnerability and resilient ambition, Linda and Maggie felt as if they were awakening from a long slumber of uncertainty. With newfound courage and steadfast determination, they pledged to move forward together. Days later, in that very bakery, the air filled with laughter, the scent of freshly baked goods woven through heartfelt stories of forgiveness and renewed purpose resonated throughout the space. Linda and Maggie, side by side, prepared to craft their creations, not just pastries, but a life reimagined and reclaimed in the spirit of connection. With every successful cake, every shared laugh, they celebrated the essential truth that dreams were not just a destination, they were a journey shared, a testament to the power of vulnerability, the strength of hope, and the transformative magic of second chances. This was not just the end of a chapter, it was the beginning of so much more. They had grown, conquered their fears, learned to embrace their identities, and transformed their relationships in the process. The sun dipped low, casting golden hues across the kitchen as Linda pulled out her new recipe. With confidence seeping into her every move, she realized that she was not just a dreamer, she was indeed a creator of her own destiny. Now is your time to embrace growth and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.